Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome to the bonus show. We have another airport security breach. The first one we talked about was the guy who was jet skiing around the water near JFK, New York City, and his jet ski ran out of fuel. He swam. It was getting dark out. It essentially became nighttime, and he was stranded. He swam to the closest bit of land he could find. It happened to be where the airport was. He hopped a fence, walked across a bunch of runways, and eventually made it to a terminal, I guess, maybe outside of the terminal, where, well, I guess he was arrested. And I'm not really sure what the follow-up was, if they actually took him to court. But he breached an incredibly expensive security system with no effort. And it happened again, this time at Newark. Apparently, a man who was dressed in women's clothing, who was fleeing a bad date, jumped a fence at Newark, breaching this $300 million security system. And yeah, walked across a few runways, same type of deal. Eventually made it over to where there were some workers who called the cops on him. And I mean, the first time you hear about this happening, you think, okay, I guess it's possible that this guy happened to find the one hole that was in this system. And but when this happens again with this incredibly complex and expensive security system, I just assume that these systems are a joke, that there's massive profits being made by these security companies, and that they really don't work for shit.
I read an article recently about American airport security. And I don't think it's that individually the systems aren't good, but it's just that most of the security is set up in one place, right? Most of the security at the airport, yes, there are fences outside and there are security vehicles that drive around. Depending on the airport, there's different security methods, cameras outside, etc. But for the most part, security happens in the security line at the TSA checkpoint. And then once you're beyond that, there's again very little security. There are cameras, of course, and police walking around. The biggest criticism that I have read of American airport security is that it should really be in kind of concentric rings, right? And this happens in Israel at the airport, where there are different types of security at different distances from the airport, and that in this way, you don't have such an obvious. This seems to be, I don't know, relatively benign, right? It wasn't someone trying to set off a bomb, for example, but in this manner, you have different screenings happening at different distances from the airport. These may be switched up. You don't know exactly where they'll be on any particular day. One of the biggest problems with American airport security is it's all happening inside the terminal at the TSA security checkpoint, and that it just doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah. Well, it's not working here. I don't know. Maybe if these airports actually hired security experts in this perimeter security and had them handle this themselves instead of basically just paying some company who may be ripping them off to do it, we might have better outcomes here. But it's kind of disturbing to know that literally anyone can hop a fence with a backpack that has something undesirable in it and wreak havoc. And
although we have to admit, Louis, that as far as we know, nobody has successfully hopped a fence and done anything. They have been able to hop the fence, but they've all been caught, as far as we know.
I mean, I don't remember hearing any stories about anyone trying to hop these fences, and getting caught. The only two times I've ever heard of this happening were the two times that a couple of guys who just strolled through this security system. I think this same thing applies to home security systems too. I think the vast majority of these home security systems are a complete joke, and will not help you when things get bad. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I know people who had a break-in attempt, for example, or their house was actually broken into. In fact, I know someone well that this happened to, and they installed a security system. And case in point, there was another break-in attempt, and the alarm went off, immediately called the police, the people ran away, and they probably were not broken into because they had the security system. I know what you're saying. They're not the most advanced systems, but if your doors and windows, or at least the doors, I don't know, it's definitely something. It gives some peace of mind.
All right. Well, I'm very skeptical, and I do not plan on getting one. uh, Here's an interesting story from Egypt. The Egyptian military-backed government has declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization, and this is huge. Of course, they have tons of followers. They're very active politically, socially. They have their hands everywhere in the country. And a lot of people like them because they say, well, the Muslim Brotherhood helps people in poor regions, humanitarian efforts, while others say that that's just a method of recruiting people and winning favor, and it's all political. But what do you think about this?
It's a similar situation as to the one with Hamas, right? Where there are different state agencies. Some say Hamas is a terrorist organization. Some say that it is not. There's no question that they are gaining favor by, aside from all of their less public and less positive activities, giving people money, funding social services, etc. It's not a new strategy amongst countries in which there is turmoil. And ultimately, every time we get involved, I don't think the discussion of let's figure out whether it is or isn't a terrorist group, I don't even know that that's a relevant discussion because everybody has a different standard for what a terrorist group is and what a terrorist group does. I think it's interesting because of what it could signify politically within the country, but it's tough for me to really figure out how this will help anything because as we see with Hamas, having some label it a terrorist organization has not drastically changed the dialogue or the progress.
Right. Well, I guess this is the military-backed government. It's their way of delegitimizing and hopefully destroying the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, the president who was ousted was a former Muslim Brotherhood leader, Morsi.
Right.
So interesting stuff happening over there. We'll see what happens if it's. We'll see what the long-term effects are of something like that. And I mean, I guess in a sense, they're making activity or collusion or involvement with Muslim Brotherhood in illegal activity, I would imagine. So. I mean, that may just stop people from supporting them out of fear of legal repercussions, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure it has angered a lot of people, and I'm sure it made a lot of other people happy. It's pretty chaotic over there. On a lighter note, actually, I don't know if this is a lighter note.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Dennis Rodman will be returning to North Korea for a third time. Actually, it seems like this has already come and gone. This was a little bit earlier. This was 10 days ago. And it seems that he was invited to help train the basketball team, but only for a few days. Now, I'm not really sure what good that does. But it's just another Dennis Rodman trip to North Korea to visit his buddy, Kim Jong-un. What the hell is going on?
It's one of the best stories of the last year. Dennis Rodman becoming friends with Kim Jong-un, giving interviews. Dennis Rodman, essentially the foremost expert on North Korea in the modern Kim Jong-un regime, maybe in the world. Is that fair to say? I mean, maybe there's someone in China because of China's ties with North Korea that knows as much as Dennis Rodman knows. But Dennis Rodman is basically the world expert on North Korea right now.
It's incredible. Yeah, I would say other than China or perhaps defectors who happen to be in South Korea, Dennis Rodman probably knows more about Kim Jong-un than anybody.
The thing I'm not understanding, though, is, okay, now it's clear that he has a relationship. Has any government authority, has the State Department met with him and spoken with him? Have they planted ideas in his mind for things he should do or say, or specific things he should pay attention to while in North Korea? It seems like the biggest opportunity in I don't know how many years to gather intelligence, although maybe Dennis Rodman wouldn't do that. Maybe he really is just buddies with Kim Jong-un and he would say, no, 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 no. I'm not a political guy. Going for basketball. He loves basketball. I love basketball. That's all it is. Maybe he wouldn't even be up to it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know he's probably treated like royalty anytime he goes over there. He probably loves that. Who knows if he even sees any of what's happening in the countryside or what's really happening in that country.
Right.
They may have a veil over his head while he's there. And hell, if he's only there for 4 days training the basketball team, I mean, what's he really going to see?
I can't imagine that they wouldn't be interested in talking to him just based on his interactions with Kim Jong-un. Even if he sees nothing, even if he has the totally sanitized, usual experience that so many of these chaperone trips have, just hanging around with Kim Jong-un, you would think would be of exponential interest to the State Department.
Yeah. Incredible stuff. Makes me want to become friends with Dennis Rodman just so I can get over there and see what's going on.
We actually can go over. You know, we talked about it a couple years ago that it's not as tough as it seems to just get a tourist visa to go, and you can go on a tour and they take you around. Of course, it's very sanitized and all that, but it's not. I mean, we could do it. It's doable.
Well, it'd probably be expensive. But I mean, would you still go even if it was one of these? Of course, it would be one of these chaperone trips. Would you still go?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would. I have to be honest. I would be a little scared of if they find out that if they get it in their mind that you're trying to make a secret negative video or something, and all of a sudden you end up in prison or executed. I would probably be scared because it has happened to people in North Korea before. It's happened to American journalists.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't risk, I don't know, wearing like secret recording equipment on the off chance that they'd give you some type of pat down or something. And so, I mean, of course, it'd still be worth the stories you could tell, I guess.
Yeah, but even still, a lot of people don't even know that the guy we interviewed about a year ago or 8 months ago about his trip there, he says you're allowed to photograph and film. They just are really controlling it tightly, but you're allowed to. It's if you're open about what you're doing, they let you. It's just going to be very sanitized, but you can still try to talk to the interpreters and the tour guides, etc. You can get what you can, you know?
All right. Well, will we take a trip to North Korea? Time will tell. I guess that's to be determined. And we'll talk to everyone later.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.